All right, 50K ready, or as we're more embarrassingly going to be calling this episode, 50 mile ready. The UTMB recap. I want to kind of base this episode around my whole experience and do a lot of what I wish I knew. I mean, I think with any good DNF comes a great learning opportunity. And I feel like whenever I was looking for information about UTMB, the only videos were really the people on the really high end. And I find myself not to be very elite at all. Far from elite. And not to say that I was misguided in any way, but there were a ton of things that I learned about on or read about on paper that I kind of thought to myself, okay, yeah, like I'll manage those certain things. But then in the moment, things were not the same. And I took a ton of notes. I know it's been probably a week since I've done the race. I immediately started taking notes the day of the DNF. Just things that I wanted to go back and recall, and I've kind of organized them on here. I have the course, what I wish I knew, or what I wish I took a little bit more seriously. The mind fucks that I dealt with during this whole ordeal. Some of the post-race reflections, and then some questions that I received on Instagram and other social media platforms that I wanted to make sure that I understood. If you don't know, I do have a social media platform, Brad Trains, so you can go find me there, and as well here on YouTube for anybody watching the video. And if you are getting this on Spotify or Apple, please leave a review at the end if you like this episode. It really helps boost the podcast up. And you could check us out on YouTube as well. I think the best place to start would maybe be the whole DNF, or maybe the context of the whole course in itself. I'll just start with this. And then maybe as I paint the rest of the picture, it'll become more clear. I would love to be able to come up with a grand reason why I didn't make it or why I got DNF'd. I wouldn't love to say I was injured, but in everything that I'm about to say over the next 45 minutes to an hour, depending on how long this ramble takes, I want it to be very, very clear that I am happy and proud of my performance and what I was capable of doing. That's first and foremost. I also want to state that I understand that the weather was poor. That situation did not help me in any way, shape, or form. It was not impossible. People finished. But for a guy like me, and the reasons that I will discuss, it did not help me in any way, shape, or form. Saying that now, if the weather was perfect, I got to be honest and say I don't know if it would have been any easier for me. I know I would have made it further in the race, but I know the race only gets progressively more difficult. And I just don't know. And maybe we'll talk about if I'm going to go back, but that's been the hardest thing over the last week is I wanted to feel the pain. I wanted to feel that soreness. I didn't get that. And I really want to know some of the what ifs and some of the things I've learned since the race, if they were changed, how the race would have played out for me in the near future or in the future after that. But the only reason I did not finish this race is I didn't go fast enough. I can sugarcoat it any way, shape, or form I want. I can blame. I can make excuses. Guys, that is not my style. The fact of the matter is I had to move at a certain speed to reach certain cutoffs. Those cutoffs earlier in the race are definitely more strict than towards the end of the race, but that's true for most ultras. Full stop. I did not go fast enough. I got time cutted at mile 50. If you watched my video, you know that I started to know that it wasn't going to be easy to make time cuts at probably mile 30. I saw myself getting into aid stations a little closer and a little closer and a little closer. But with that said, I never gave up. If you look on Strava, my last 5 or 6 miles leading into Courmayeur, where I DNF'd, my miles got faster and faster and faster. I was okay. I had things hurting during the race. Now in hindsight, I'm like, okay, but like not things that like took me out. Like Jake didn't make it because he had an injury, right? I didn't make it because I didn't go fast enough. Now it's very easy for me to say the reason that I did not go fast enough is because of the terrain as far as the rain was concerned. I think there's some things that, and I've gone back and forth on Instagram with people about this, that being in the back of the pack, it has its downfalls as far as like the queues and the things like that, but I knew that. I think the major difference is by the time I got to the trail at certain points in the race, you figure probably 2,000 people, literally. There was 2,700 people that started. I was probably in the back 800. 2,000 people had run through that muddy, disgusting trail. And if you've ever like ridden mountain bikes after a muddy race, or if you've ever been on trail with muddy people, the first 50 people did not have the same trail that the last 800 people had. And the fact of the matter is I moved well uphill. I was so proud of my climbing. I really was. I climbed better than I've climbed in any race. The Stairmaster helped me so much. I could not go downhill. There was no like, I'm going to blow my quads out. There was no, don't go too fast on those downhills. The level of slipperiness, I just can't explain. I've never seen anything like it. And you know, I have a history of rainy races. There were just grown men and women. All you heard, it was like in the movies, like people were getting like maybe shot. It was like, all you heard was like, poles snapping everywhere. And this was on the first call on the way down. People just trying to find any way they could. But if you got off trail, the grass was even worse. It was so steep and so slippery that when I would make a full stop, I would stand still and I would go to take another step. And as I lifted my right foot to step forward, my left foot would slip out from under me. This is not a shoe issue. This is just, that was everybody. And you start falling a couple times. Now I'm all muddy. I got mud in my water bottle. I was already soaking wet. I couldn't go fast enough. And there's no flat part in the course. We'll talk about the course in a second, but we pretty much came down off of that, got our water bottles filled, and then had to do that again. And when I got to the second one, as the sun came up, and it was just as muddy and slippery, and 2,000 people had beaten up the trail, and there was just 5 to 6 inch divots of mud, and you didn't know if it was going to be slippery mud or a little bit drier clay mud. Like, it was so unpredictable. I spent so much energy just trying not to fall that I could not go fast enough. That is the reason why. Yes, I had a little bit of knee pain. Okay. Everybody does. Yeah, the weather sucked. That's definitely the thing that slowed me down to that point. But for a guy that's already went in knowing that I was going to be fighting time cuts, because like I said, I'm not elite, the weather just didn't make it any easier, if that makes sense. So that's why I DNF'd. I didn't go fast enough. And next time, I'll probably just have to go a little bit faster. Next, I think I'll get into the course. Let's see what it says here. It said the climbs were crazier than I could have imagined. I heard they were steep. I heard they were long. But I have not experienced anything in the United States that was like it. To just pretty much do 4,000 foot repeats, up, down, up, down. I did 3 of them back to back to back. 4,000 feet up, 4,000 feet down in less than 4 miles. So to go 1,200 feet, 1,200 feet per mile straight up, single track, in a conga line, in a blizzard condition or pouring rain, I wasn't ready for that. Even with all the Stairmaster, like if I wouldn't have done as much work climbing this summer and Stairmaster, it would have been a lot sooner that I would have been out. The climbs, and I frankly don't know how I would train for it. I know now why people like Walmsley and all these people go there and live there for, you cannot mimic it here. I mean, maybe you can, but I don't see how they were not so much steep up, but steep down. The mud made it impossible to run downhill. I just talked about that. There were technical parts, but coming from here, the course was very runnable. If it was dry, we'd be like, I've heard people call UTMB technical and things like that. From a guy living in the Northeast, I would not consider it technical. If it wasn't muddy, I could have wore like Challengers, or I could have wore the new H1s from Mount to Coast. Like, there was some rocks. There was some sections that was like a little bit rocky, but for the 50 miles I saw, if it was dry, it was very, very runnable. But with that said, if it was, I don't know. I mean, I've gained downhill strength. I'm not sure that my downhill strength really, you will hear that the downhill is very, very important, and downhill strength in those quads, especially early on, very, very important. Take that shit seriously. Simple as that. Take it seriously. Focus more on that than you think you need to. Crewing this race, logistical nightmare. Like, if you are going to do this race and you want to bring friends and family and all that, logistical nightmare. Tara, my wife, is a trooper. She had it all planned out, but buses and hours on buses, hours waiting in line. That. Aid stations, chaos. I'd heard they were going to be crowded. There was not one spot in the first 50 miles where I could have got into that aid station, found a spot, took my vest off, changed my clothes. In the whole race, it says I have 7 minutes of stoppage time inside aid stations, and that was probably correct. And I would say 5 of them were in Contamines when I saw my wife at 20 miles. Because it was just like, it was so chaotic, and it was just grabbing, like, I just had to get out of there. Chaos. And maybe they were more packed because it was pouring rain and everyone didn't, like, maybe there'd be some people like outside. None of that. There was none of that. It was, I've never seen anything like it. It was chaos. Whether it was like the language barrier, it was just absolute chaos. I'd also heard that like the meat and cheese thing was like, haha, all they serve is meat and cheese and bread. All they got is meat, cheese, and bread. Should I have like literally trained with like a salami stick in my pack? Sounds ridiculous, but yeah, I should have been running with Slim Jims. I mean, I got the calories and they were actually kind of nice, but dry bread and crack, it was a charcuterie board. That was it. So be prepared for that. The mind mess part of it, it was very remote. And I'd heard this, but you feel like you are in the middle of nowhere. And I haven't had this feeling really since I was at the bottom of the Grand Canyon and I realized the only way out was up. Like, maybe it's like the city slicker in me, but I realize that, like, I know why they make you get rescue insurance. I know why they make you have a phone number and a phone. I know, like, there are some places where rescue is the only option. And that kind of, it affected me as a city slicker. Because there were times, and seeing Jake injured at mile 25 and knowing that he had to limp out, and Jake went over 2 8,000-foot peaks with a blown out hamstring because his alternative was to wait 20 hours until they broke down this aid station and then hopefully get a ride out of there somehow, or to be rescued. Those were his options. And I started to think to myself, like, even if I make the cutoff, like, and I saw, I think it was Ben Parks made a video where he injured his knee last year and then he tried to like figure it out and then he didn't get back to Chamonix until like 2 days later and $400 worth of taxi rides. That is a real thing. And it wasn't the darkness. It was just, you are in the middle of nowhere, especially in between aid stations. And the thought of like going into a second night already wet, already freezing cold, like, yeah, that definitely played in the mental game. You know, if I was training for this again, I would definitely get out in more remote places for a longer amount of time. I'd get up into the whites or something like that and just get comfortable feeling like you have to self-preserve a little bit. That was a huge mind fuck. It really was. The 6 p.m. start, man, I thought I was going to love that. I'm a night owl. I thought I was going to love it. I didn't sleep at all the week I was there. Whether it was excitement, jet lag, the energy, nerves, I didn't sleep. And I got up race morning, had a regular breakfast, which was great. Was just going stir crazy, got out, walked around a little bit, went down to the finish line, saw other races finishing, things like that. I thought I was going to love it. Like, yeah, let's get this first night out of the way. Things I didn't think about. But there was something that even though I knew it was true and it was not a surprise, and this gives a lot more respect to those people that do these 200s and things like that. When the sun came up and the sun was warm, the storm was overnight. When the sun came up, Saturday was a beautiful day, which is really frustrating. Because if you made it through the first night, so many people DNF'd at Cormier. If you got through Cormier, you were pretty good because the weather was so nice that second day. But when the sun came up, knowing that I was definitely going to have to do another night and go up to 8,000 feet again and be cold again, that's not something I thought I was ready for, but it really wasn't something I was ready to fully comprehend. The fact that I'm starting on Friday and I'm not going to be finished till Sunday, I just couldn't understand how that was going to happen. How I was going to do that. And not in a scared way, not like I can't do it. It was more of how the hell am I going to do that? And we go through that a lot in ultras. A lot of time we get to mile 50 and we're so beat up and we're like, how the hell am I going to do this? And then you just figure it out. So I know I would have figured it out, but I just thought it was oh yeah, cool. Start at 6 p.m., bang this first night out. The race starts in the morning and we'll tackle that. No. Nope. And I know they can't change the start time, right? Because they're doing it for the pros, unless you want the pros coming in at 9 in the morning. But then what do you start at noon? Move it a little more forward. But the 2 nights for a 100 is wacky. And I know now, just the fact that for best case scenario, I was a 40-hour finisher. I was always okay, yeah, 40 hours, no big deal. What? And guys, I was not a 40-hour finisher. I knew very early on. I think I came into Contamines at 20 miles and Tyra's do you want to know what they have your projected finish time at? And I was no. And at that time, look at the video. I'm in great spirits. I'm starting to think about the finish line. I'm getting choked up at mile 25. I feel amazing. Nutrition on the whole race. I didn't have any lows. I just didn't make it. I wasn't fast enough. I had a great race up until mile 50. Nutrition was great. No stomach issues whatsoever. I was warm. I had some periods, but even with all that, I asked my wife after the fact. She's yeah, they had you coming in an hour before the cutoff. And that was early, 20 miles in. I was not a 40-hour finisher. And shit, that's okay. It really is. I've told people that I'm so okay with this DNF that I almost feel bad that I'm so okay with the DNF. And I really think it, because being out there, I got to admit, I was in over my head. Granted, I did all the races to get in, and I did canyons, which is a difficult 100-miler. And man, I trained my ass off. I am so much fitter than I was going into canyons, and I'm proud of that. But doing hundreds for a year, I might have been in over my head. And that's okay. The fact that I dialed nutrition so much that I went 50 miles, eating regularly, not being hungry, not bonking, not going through lows. I manage caffeine, all these things. I'm like, if anything, it makes me hungrier. Like coming out of Javelina, I went into like post-race depression. Guys, I'm fired up. And maybe we'll talk about what I've already signed up for. I have my name on a list. A few lists, if we will. And I don't want to say them publicly, but we'll talk about one of them. But yeah, I'm hungry and I'm proud and I'm happy. And I think that's the best way. Like, I knew that it was going to be more of an adventure. I did think I could finish, and I still think I could have. Just, I know now that everything would have had to have gone right. Everything would have had to like line up perfectly. The stars would have had to, and I think the stars kind of did align in Canyons. I went 32 hours there, maybe just over 32, I think. But for me to have completed UTMB, the stars would have had to have aligned. On a number of different. I know there's people there that were probably less fit than me that finished, and I know there's people that were more fit than me that didn't finish. Like you can't judge it by that. If you're going into the sport, know that like somebody might have had their greatest day and somebody might have their worst. You can't compare yourself to other people. And it was a good feeling. Well, because I've DNF races where I got home and I was like, you're just being a little bitch. But this one, like I was trying so hard. So hard. And when I saw the time hit my watch, that's the point in the video where I'm like, well, I don't know how to wrap this up. That was when I knew. And I could see and hear the aid station. Did I think about the cues earlier in the race and the times I was standing still? I think about how many times I had to like search for my glasses in the mud when I fell down the mountain. Like, yeah. But you saw the views in the video, even with the blizzard. You saw them. It was epic. This section of the podcast, or this section of the notes, says what I wish I knew or took more seriously. And some of these I'm going to try and be as unbiased as possible. Like, I don't want to say yes or no. I'll give my opinion on why this is a one and done for me in a minute. And a lot of them do have to do with this. But I'm not here to crush other people's hopes and dreams. Like, I know a lot of people that still dream of doing this race. These are not like to deter you from wanting to do UTMB or not. This is not a knock on UTMB or not. These are my observations of things that I wish I knew that maybe you should know. All right? And let me see if I put it in here. I didn't put like the logistics of where I stayed, and I'll start with that maybe. Let me just say, you should definitely probably stay in. Let me get through all my notes, and then I'll try and remember if I have a pen here to talk about like spending the extra money to stay in Chamonix. First thing I wrote, there are so many people. I heard that. I heard there's going to be a lot of people. I didn't realize like how many and how much that would affect the race. Simple as that. The only way I can explain it to you is that for 50 miles at any time, I could reach out and touch somebody. At any time. And yeah, so many people. But that was good and bad. It had its pros and cons. I kind of am competitive. I like people around me to push me. I don't like being out in the middle of nowhere all by myself, especially in the night. But for 50 miles and 18 hours, at any time, I could have reached out and touched somebody or turned around and touched somebody. The starting line was insane. You must get there early. I got there, I think we got there like a little over an hour, maybe 90 minutes before. And I was far back. And all the videos look like you're just standing in a street. And then you funnel. Nope. Not like that. There's a street, but then there's curbs and there's steps up to different levels. Like the church is on steps and the stores are up on this steps. So it's all different people all over the place. That's the one thing. The next thing is like, I think there was like 5 toilets for 3,000 racers. you got to make sure you can pee. And the people up front, as we were coming out, or as the race started and we were all funneling to the start, there's a lot of yellow bottles. So I guess if you're getting there early, people knew to like bring a pee bottle, because the people in the first 50 yards, like I missed the whole doom, doom, clap, doom, doom, clap. They did that at probably an hour out. Maybe that's what it was for. The people that got to do that had been there for well over 90 minutes. You know, like I heard that part, but I was not standing for that part. I also heard like, oh yeah, you know, it's just everybody hanging out in town. Like it's not just the racers. I didn't realize that so many people, and I don't even know why you'd want to do this, had their wife, spouse, or even children standing with them. So like I'm sitting there, it's butts to nuts. Like just constantly being pushed and shoved. No language barrier. Everyone's speaking a different language. Pushed and shoved. And then you look down and there's a 7-year-old kid at my waist. The dude that's racing and his wife, and then his buddy. We're all standing in the same spot getting ready for the same race. There's no corrals. There's no police. There's no volunteers come this way. Nope. It's here's the start line. Figure your shit out back there somewhere. And when the horn goes off, just figure out how to get to the start. It blew my mind. And like I said, I don't even want you want to do that. Like my wife is like, I'm going to go down the street and get away from this madness. I'll see you in a little bit. But there was people, spectators, that stood amongst us. Probably a third of the people that you see in that video of the start is spectators. Not spectators on the road, in the crowd. I didn't realize it was going to be that bad, and it was annoying. Because when it started, I didn't make it to the start line until 5 minutes, and I'm 50 yards back. But, like, they don't walk to the start. So now when the race started, we were all funneling to the start, but all the spectators were just standing there. It's like, what the fuck are you doing here? Get out of the way. And you want to be a little bit like, But I'll tell you this, we are not as pushy and shovey and rude as the French. That was a little biased. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. The next thing I wrote here, the conga lines and cues cause an unnatural pace, good and bad. There was no natural pace for the first 20 miles. They pushed me up the climbs. I cannot just step out of the way and let people pass. People only talk about the negative cues and it's slowing you down, which granted, it did. My Garmin told me in the first 20 miles of this race, I stood still 0 miles per hour for 20 minutes. Now, I started my watch when the race horn started. It took me about 5 minutes to get to the start line, but then we walked through that for a little bit, but that was walking. My watch told me 0 miles per hour for 20 minutes in the first 20 miles. Those were all cues. And I'll tell you, it was accurate. That's not walking. Stopped. 20 minutes. I missed Cormier by less than that. Hindsight's 2020. Yeah, okay. If there was no cues, I would have made it. Who knows? But I only heard about the downside. And I was told that, like, the cues, this is what I was told, and here's what I wish I knew. I was told the cues will stop after about 10K. That was accurate. What I did not realize or was told that I wish I knew was that the Congo lines will continue to Contamines. Now, what did that mean? That mean that when we were climbing single track, like the first little bump that you see, little bump, I think it's like 2,500 feet, 3,000. That's on a ski resort, pretty wide, crowded but wide. But the first col that you go up, the first time you go up to 8,200 feet, and this was in a first torrential downpour and then a blizzard-like conditions, this was a Congo line, one person at a time. And people will tell you, like, I was able to get around people. No, they're full of shit. Like, you're in a Congo line, and you either have the option to stay in line at the pace of that Congo line, or just step to the side, and then there's going to be miles of people that are at that pace. So when I say there was no unnatural pace, what I mean is not only did it slow me down, but it also sped me up. I had to stay in line. And I thought to myself a little going up the first climb, like, this is probably a little harder than I want to be going. But it was early and I felt good. Now, did I blow up? No, I didn't blow up. I mean, maybe I did. I didn't race long enough to know. But my heart rate was a little elevated, but like that excitement elevated. So like I wasn't too concerned. But I know that I went harder up that hill, that first mountain. And I definitely went harder up the second mountain because of the people that were around me. Now, granted, on some of the switchbacks where it did get wide, were you able to maybe hop around somebody or let some people pass by you? Yes. But for a large majority of the climb, when you're in your spot, you were in there. So when I say there's no natural pace for the first 20 miles, I did not get to dictate really how fast or slow I was going in the first 20 miles. I was either being forced to go too slow or forced to go too fast. And I don't know how I would have mimicked that in training, maybe going on a group run where people in the group sometimes will change the pace here and there. But I wasn't prepared for the latter of being pushed too hard. I was always like, oh, the cues will be great. They'll keep me from going out too hard. And then I'll just pull back on the climbs and just find a groove on the climbs. Nope. It was got pulled back in the cues and then I was pushed really, really hard. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm pushing really hard. I'll take the descents nice and easy. But then the effort on the descent, it was harder to go downhill. So that was just like really what I wish I would have known as far as like no going in that, yeah, you're going to stop a bunch. And they were kind of like, yeah, you'd stop here and walk a little bit up to it. It was usually like when you had to go through a fence or when like the trail narrowed into going over a bridge. It happened a couple of times. You know, it's just, yeah. And like I've been in like other races where the trail's a little wider where you hear somebody coming up behind you and you kind of step to the side, let them go. But with 2,700 people and being able to reach out and touch somebody on either side of you for 50 miles, it wasn't somebody coming up behind you. It was somebody always on your shoulder. And if they were French and saw your flag, they were stepping on my shoes. They were poking my calves with their poles. They were just throwing themselves in front of me. It was tough. I wasn't ready for the increased pace. People didn't talk much. And this was the next thing I wrote. People don't talk, and maybe I'm a paranoid America, but people were less pushy when I took my flag off my pack. I'm used to like people chatting it up. And I know there was a language barrier. There was so many languages and it's hard. Oh, there's my dog. So like I would hear somebody speaking English or I'd see a flag and I'd try and talk to people. But even the people that spoke English, they didn't really want to talk that much. Everyone was so focused. And maybe it's because they're early on. But we'll say that I felt paranoid like hearing people in another language say America and giggle like when they were around me. And I'd mentioned to a guy from maybe Britain, Great Britain, he spoke English. And I was like, I just feel paranoid. Like they hate me. Like they just don't, they're just being rude. They're being pushy. And he's like, I had an American buddy that felt the same way. And he took his American flag off his pack and he felt differently. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not pointing fingers, but when I took my flag off my pack, the interactions I was having with people as far as physically changed. And I don't know why that is. Maybe it's because it was further on in the race, whatever. But I ended up taking my flag off my pack. It wasn't friendly. It was all business. It was not friendly. And I had heard like it wasn't that friendly, but I think especially in the nighttime or when you're in your lows and you can kind of come up next to somebody and just have a talk with somebody, there was none of that. There was no talking, which was why it was so great to see Jake there. Having Jake there and being able to be like, a familiar face, a familiar voice, that was really, really nice. That was very, very nice. Yeah, I just wrote, not not friendly like other languages, other races, maybe just mainly the languages. Yeah, I mean, this is a worldwide race, and maybe that's me being like first world problems of that's my American whatever. Like nobody wants to talk to me. Maybe, but I like the social aspect of racing, and I like to use people to get out of lows, and I like helping people get out of lows when I'm not in one. None of that. There was none of it. The next thing I wrote, glad I stayed in Chamonix. Worth the extra few dollars in my opinion. I got out of the room. I got in and out of the room very, very easily. So I stayed in Lykke, Lykke. I think that's Lykke. If you're gonna go, please let me know. It was a little bit. I mean, I stayed for 5 nights. I think I paid 3,000 US. At the time, it was like 2,800 euros. I know other Americans that stayed in Chamonix. I know some people that stayed in Les Houches. And just logistically, always needing to get a bus to come into town, in and out of town, getting to the expo, things like that. Like I was probably a half a mile from the finish line, and it was the perfect amount. I was a 5-minute walk to the expo and checking in. I was able to just walk to dinner, grab something. In the middle of the night when I couldn't sleep because there was races coming in 24 hours a day, I was able to get out of the room, just go for a walk, clear my head, go to the finish line, watch a person finish. I just like the comfort of staying in town and being just that little bit away from the finish line where I didn't like, there wasn't like noise keeping me up all night. It was things like that. Like it was nice. And it was nice to have a nice consistent breakfast every morning, like their continental breakfast. I knew what I was eating, so there was at least that consistency. And just in talking with people that tried to save a few bucks and stayed outside of town or waited too long and couldn't get a spot in town, I'm glad I did. I booked right after the lotto. If you want a hotel room, you got to do it quick because all the brands book up all the chalets because they don't have to worry about a lotto. So most of the chalet, all the people you see staying in chalets are there with brands or like they know somebody because I looked at those first, impossible to get. And then if you're too far away, then you got to get a car, things like that. And then the hotel, I got recommendations from Andy Glaze actually, who gave me the recommendation for that hotel. It was spot on. They had a sauna, bower room, steam room, pool, a lukewarm hot tub. It really wasn't hot. I don't know if that was the hotel or just them in general, but a really good continental breakfast. The rooms were good. A little dark for my liking, like there was no overhead lights. But I'm very glad that I stayed. And if I would do it again, I wasn't sure there because I was talked about the room being so expensive. Knowing what I know now, I'd probably still spend that's where I would probably spend an extra couple bucks is like just staying there. Other things I wish I knew or wish I took more seriously. You must strength train. I slacked on this and paid the price. Not so much in my legs, but in my arms. It will catch up with you. If you use your poles properly, you are using them to propel. It's not just you're walking them click, clack, click, clack. If you watch the pros and if you do it right, you are using them. I slacked on strength training. My arms, my triceps and shoulders were more sore the next day than my legs. And I could feel muscle fatigue starting with that up and down and up and down and up and down. It's so cliche, but I treated climbing and the Stairmaster and things as strength, and granted they were. I should have been lunging more. I should have been squatting more. I should have been doing more upper body strength. I should have been doing more core work because my pack was heavy and I was definitely sore in my core from carrying a heavy pack. I should have trained more with poles. I knew that I knew how to use them, so I didn't feel I wanted to train them. And I'm like, I'm not going to train with poles because I want my legs to get stronger in training, not thinking that I should be training with poles to get my arms stronger as well. Or I didn't bring poles because I felt self-conscious with the people I was there. Like, they're like, you're bringing your poles for this. I slacked off on that. And it definitely was catching up to me at mile 50. My arms would have been shredded. My core would have been wrecked. And just a little stabilizer muscles. the little tendons here in my knee, or the little tendons and ligaments in my ankles, all of that stuff that comes along with strength training would have been made better if I really would have stayed consistent with a strength program. I wish I knew that. What I wish I knew or took more seriously, do not mess around with the mandatory gear. It's one of the biggest memes on the internet, I know, and it's joked about. But I know now that if you need your gear, you are going to need it. And I don't want to sound dramatic, but it might be life or death. There were people that I know skimped on gear that probably got hypothermia. I am so glad I was talking to a friend that had done the race. And I was like, should I just go on Amazon and like just get like cheap waterproof pants? And they said to me exactly what I'm saying to you right now. You can do that. But if you need that gear, you are going to wish that you had the right gear. And I am so thankful. Even if I never wear that jacket or those pants again, I am so thankful that I spent a little extra money and I got a proper waterproof jacket to their standard. Not just to meet the standard, but to meet the mountain standard. I am so glad that I got good waterproof pants, especially with the amount of times I fell in the mud. Not just to meet their standard, but to meet the mountain standard. One of the things I did do is my waterproof gloves were yellow dishwashing gloves, like the type that we wear when we use bleach or whatever. Amazing for waterproof. Not very warm. The first climb, when I was using my hands a lot, my hands, they were dry and warm and awesome. Second climb, as the sun was coming up, it got a lot more windy and struggled a lot more. My hands got really cold. Now, I had warm gloves as well, but I hesitated on bringing my warm gloves out because it was pouring rain. I didn't want to get them wet for the second night. So I suffered through with my just dry gloves. So I wish I would have known, like, bring an extra set, because I didn't want to put my warm gloves on because then I couldn't give them the towel to dry them because I have to have them on me at all times as mandatory gear. So I probably would have brought 2 pairs of warm gloves. So I could have worn the first ones at night and got them wet or whatever, and then just gave them the towel and got dry ones as my mandatory gear. But please, like, don't skimp out on the gear. If you're going to spend this money, you saw my reel, this race cost me almost $7,000, probably closer to 10. Spend $300 on a good waterproof jacket. If you can't, don't go. I'm being honest. The weather was on drugs. It was hot. It was cold. It was raining. It was snowing. It was sleeting. It was blowing. That's all I have to say about it. Do not skimp on your waterproof gear. Post reflections as I get into the last part of this podcast. And this is where I don't want to deter anybody from trying to get here. Okay? These are just post-race reflections. Your calendar should not be based on a race or getting into a race. And that goes for UTMB, Western States, Hard Rock. I made the mistake of dedicating essentially my entire ultra career so far to try to get stones to get into this race. My first ultra, Grindstone 100K. My first 100 miler, UTMB Canyons. Like, I needed to get stones. And with the amount of money that I spent on this race, although it was an epic adventure that I will remember until the day I die, and I'm so blessed that I got to go and so happy, I could have done literally 10 epic races with the amount of money that I cost and the amount of stress waiting. I made a mistake in that case. There's so many other cool experiences that I could have done with friends and family instead. If I didn't have Jake there with me, the vibe on this race would have been so much lower. The fact that he was there with me and my wife was there and we were all together, that's really what made it what it was. I'm not going to do that anymore. If I coincidentally want to do a race and it's a Hard Rock qualifier, so be it. I don't have a Western States qualifier. I know a year ago, it'd be 2 months left. I'd be trying to find a Western States qualifier to get my... Nope. It's fine. My life isn't dedicated to getting into Western States Hard Rock, UTMB. My life is dedicated to having awesome experiences with friends and family, and I did not know that until after this race. Now my calendar will be filled with experiences, adventures, and things with friends. Like when I did the Pemi Loop with Jake this summer. That was more fun than UTMB. And it was just us out in the middle of the White Mountains in New Hampshire. Right? I'm doing a really, really flat race that everyone's like, you're doing a loopy flat 100 in January? Yeah. Because I'm doing it with like 6 of my friends. It's going to be dope. It's going to be so fun. I can't wait. I can't believe it took me... I mean, I knew it was about the people. But I guess it took to realize how much I'd invested in one thing, in one race. And Dave Matthews said once, if you hold on tight to what you think is your thing, you may find you're missing all of the rest. I'm sure he met a chick, but I held on so tight to UTMB and getting into UTMB. And then after getting in, I held on so tight to the training and success of this one race that I missed all the rest. I missed so many cool things. So many like, hey, we're going to go up and shoot and do this through hike. Can't. Oh, we're going to fly and go do this. I can't afford it. You know? Like, I didn't go to the Arizona 300 with Taylor. He didn't really want me there, but I would have went if I could afford it. I didn't go to Cocodona to watch friends and crew there. Couldn't afford it. You know, I'm not going to SP50. I really want to go see Jake Kilgore and Mick and go do that race in Utah. Can't do it. Can't afford it. I blew my load on UTMB. You know, so I don't know. Just think about that. Think about, is one race really worth it? You know? Oh, like I said, the loop race that I'm doing with 5 or 6 of my friends, I have a pretty good feeling that race is going to be more fun than UTMB would have been, even if I finished. Some races you can't train properly for whatever reason. This is one of those races, and I think I need to evaluate that when I think about doing other races in the future. Where I live, my family dynamic, my work life, how much I really want it, frankly, has to be factored into what I'm doing. For me, on Long Island, a 40-year-old dad, 2 young kids, full-time job, fighting sobriety, a 109-mile race in the Alps with 33,000 feet going up to altitude might have been too much. I don't know. In my stage of life, it would be very, very hard for me to be successful there. It really would. I got to like kind of stay in my lane a little bit. Trying to train for this has made me fitter than ever, and I'll do more of what I did moving forward. Although I'm going flat for the rest of this year, just by circumstance, I'm still on the stair climber. I've been on the stair climber 3 times already since I've been home because it shit made me fitter. Still getting in the cold plunge, still getting in the sauna, still doing recovery, still doing all the things that made me super fit, fitter than I've ever been in my whole life today, even though I failed at the race. You know, so I'm going to continue to do those things. I realize I don't need to be on the stair climber because I'm doing a vert race. I need to be on the stair climber because it makes me better. Makes me a better athlete. I think I answered most of the questions that I got, but there is one that I need to answer. And I think this was Chad with 2D, so shout out, man. Do you have any regrets? Or like, what would you have done differently? I mentioned the strength training piece. I probably would have hit that. Okay. I mean, in hindsight, what would I do differently? Like, yeah, it would have been dope to stay in Colorado for the whole summer and get a ton of vert. It would have been great to go to France and get in the Alps. But those weren't factors that really changed my life. I mean, if I really was trying to search for something, maybe I would have done a little bit longer sustained things on the stair climber. Like I was doing an hour and 15 minutes. I think I did 1 or 2 90 minutes. I did as many big vert days going up to Mount Beacon and going up to Killington, Pico, but with family dynamics, I couldn't drive 4 hours back and forth to Pico or back and forth to Mount Beacon or staying at those back-to-back days that I probably needed. But like I said, that's not a regret. That was just my life circumstance. The only thing that I've been tossing back and forth as far as a regret, I did this race self-coached, and I don't know if it's a coincidence, but this is the first 100 that I've DNF'd, and it's the first 100 that I've not had a coach. And not even so much for the training, because like I said, I'm fitter than ever. But I think a coach would have helped manage some stresses and extra external energy that I didn't need to use worrying about dumb shit. The coach would have done what most coaches do, just kept me in my lane and kept me out of my own way. I also would have had somebody that I felt that was really on my team and really knew if I was ready. It's great the support that I get from people. Everyone was telling me, you're going to crush this, you're going to slay, great job, Brad. But a coach knows if you're ready. Like Mike McKnight, who coached me for Canyons, he had no problem telling me when I was not doing my job and when I was. This time, I either thought I was doing my job or thought I didn't know. I was constantly feeling like, am I doing enough? I'm not doing enough. Am I doing enough? I'm not doing enough. Maybe I'm just a guy that needs a coach. I don't know. Maybe I am. But I think the no coach is really my biggest regret. I don't know if I'll race another 100 without one. I don't know. I just think I need that guidance. I think I'm too much of a head case. I think I need that expertise. If I had somebody that was coaching me that had done this race, I would have done better. Probably. Don't know if I would have finished, but I would have done better. So that's my one regret. Other than that, man, I'm so happy with. Like I said, I'm proud. I really am proud. I have no interest in going back. Now, don't get it twisted. If I win that Strava Hoka contest on next week and I get an all expenses paid trip back, I'm going. I have no interest in going back. The people is too much for me. And I think if anybody is not sure or they're on the fence, you just go fast pack it. If you want to be there for the whole race experience, go out the week before. You can fast pack it with really good fitness in 3 days. You can see the entire race during the day because I missed 30 miles of it in the darkness. You can kind of pick your weather window and not be forced to go out there. You're going to save a shit ton of money. You have to ask yourself, do you want to see the course and the beauty? Or do you want to be in the race vibe? And I really think you could do both. I guess maybe the person to answer that, maybe I'll ask him is Finn Melanson, because he was there. He fast packed it before, and then he stayed and watched the race. I bet you he had the best of all the worlds. You know, if you want to go for the beauty, fast pack it. Because when you're racing, your head's down. It's dark. You know, you look up from time to time. But if you fast pack it, you can make it all about the beauty. And people say, oh, well, you don't have the aid stations. You have the refuges. You know, you can stop and have a coffee, a cafe, wherever you want. I'm not saying that I'm not going to go back and do the course. I won't pay for the race. I'm not going for stones anymore. If a brand wants to send me there, or if you want to send me there, okay. Will I fast pack it in the next 5 years? Very good chance. I want to do Alta 1 in the Dolomites first, probably. But those are the things I'm focused on. I want adventure. I wanted to see the course. I wanted to see dope things I've never seen before. And I didn't need to be in UTMB the race to do that. Same thing with hard rock. I want to fast pack it. What do they call that? The soft rock? So it's not that it was a bad race. Volunteers amazing. Aid stations chaos, but plenty of food, didn't run out of water. Great. I just don't know if for me and what I want out of this sport, it's exactly like the race that I need to go back and do again. And I said the same thing about Javelina. And I finished that race. I'm wearing the shirt. There's so many other dope things to do. I would love to go back to Javelina and go sub 24. I would love to go back to Grindstone and smash that shit now knowing what I know 3 years later. But I really honestly feel that I'm not in it to race and get finish lines. I want to experience things I've never experienced before. I was a drunk asshole my whole life. I'm getting out there. I'm doing stuff that, like, A, I have no business ever being able to do, but B, like, just living my best life and doing it with friends and being inspired by others to get out there and do the same. So that's the recap. I'd love to link up with you on Instagram. If you have any DMs or follow-ups, if you're going to do the race, please ask me. If you need to know exactly what gear I had, just ask. Just ask. Mountain Coast helps me out. I wore Mountain Coast shoes. You guys know that. I wore like their shirts and stuff. But as far as like other gear, headlamps, jacket, I'm not going to like waste time in the podcast talking about that stuff. If you want to know, just DM me. I have no problem sharing everything from my glasses that I had to buy the night before because the cold weather gear was activated, all the way down to the socks that I wore. All right? Thank you so much for the messages. I think I've gotten back to everybody. I don't feel like I let anybody down, which I thought I was going to. I thought I was going to let people down. I didn't. I lost 300 followers on Instagram. But fuck them. That's fine. I guess you can only follow me if I dominate all the races. The podcast will continue. And I will be doing 100 again very, very soon. Very soon. I'm going to pat myself on the back here. I think I'll get another podcast out before this, and this might choke me up a little bit, but I'll have one more sip, and then I'll get this out. I have 1,000 days of sobriety coming up. Why do I get emotional? On the 26th of this month, Friday night. I'll do something epic for that. I don't know if it was sports related, but fucking 1,000 days. 1,000 days. One day it'll be 10,000 days, but that means way more to me than a finish at UTMB. So, we'll be racing again. Hard. Full send, flat races. But thank you again for everything you guys give to me. I'm blessed. Take it easy. I'll catch you on the next episode.